You're trudging through the foggy streets of Victorian London, your boots clicking on wet cobblestones, the air thick with coal smoke and secrets. It's 1891, and you're Jabez Wilson, a pawnbroker scraping by in a cramped shop, your dreams of a better life fading like the morning mist. Then, out of nowhere, you spot a peculiar notice pinned to a lamppost. The Red-Headed League seeks men with fiery red hair for well-paid work. Apply at once. Your hand instinctively touches your own blazing red locks, and a spark of hope ignites. Could this be your ticket to something better? Or is it a trap, luring you into a game far bigger than you can imagine? This is the puzzle that lands on Sherlock Holmes' doorstep, pulling him and Dr. Watson into one of their strangest cases yet. Welcome to Sherlock Holmes and the Mystery of the Red-Headed League, a tale of cunning, deception, and brilliant deduction that'll keep you glued to your screen. In this 10-chapter YouTube series, we're diving deep into this classic story, reimagined with twists and turns to captivate you. So, grab a snack, cozy up, and let's unravel this mystery together. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single clue. It's a chilly autumn morning in London, 1891, and the fire in the hearth at 221B Baker Street crackles softly, casting a warm glow over the cluttered room. Sherlock Holmes, the world's greatest consulting detective, slouches in his armchair, his long fingers steepled under his chin, his sharp grey eyes staring into the distance. A pipe dangles from his lips, sending curls of smoke toward the ceiling. Across from him, Dr. John Watson, his friend and faithful chronicler, sits at a small table, scribbling notes from their latest case. The room is a familiar chaos, piled high, chemical vials scattered, and a violin resting precariously on a chair. It's quiet, almost too quiet, until a sharp rap at the door breaks the spell. Mrs. Hudson, their landlady, ushers in a man whose appearance is as striking as his story. Jabez Wilson, a pawnbroker with a mop of fiery red hair that could light up a room, stands awkwardly in the doorway, clutching his hat. His face is ruddy, his clothes worn but tidy, and his eyes dart nervously, as if he's unsure whether he's in the right place. Watson exchanges a glance with Holmes, who's already leaning forward, his curiosity piqued. This, dear viewers, is where our story begins. Strange tale that starts with a red-headed pawnbroker and spirals into a mystery that only Sherlock Holmes can solve. Jabez Wilson is no ordinary client. He owns a modest pawnshop in Saxe-Coburg Square, a gritty corner of London where business is slow and bills pile up faster than profits. He's a practical man, not given to flights of fancy. But the story he tells is so outlandish it could rival the wildest fiction. It all started a few weeks ago, he explains, his voice trembling with a mix of embarrassment and frustration. His assistant, Vincent Spaulding, a young man with a knack for fixing things and a curious obsession with photography, showed him a newspaper advertisement that seemed too good to be true. The Red-Headed League, it proclaimed, was seeking men with red hair for a well-paid position, funded by a wealthy American philanthropist named Ezekiah Hopkins. The job promised £4 a week, a sum that could keep Wilson's shop afloat. For months, Wilson, whose red hair is his most distinctive feature, was skeptical but intrigued. Spaulding, eager and insistent, practically dragged him to the application office in Pope's Court, a narrow alley not far from his shop. When Wilson arrived, he was met with a sight straight out of a carnival. The street outside the office was a sea of red hundreds of men, from carrot-topped clerks to auburn-bearded labourers, all clamoring for a chance at the mysterious job. The crowd was a spectacle, with tempers flaring and elbows jostling as each man tried to prove his hair was the reddest. Wilson, feeling out of place, nearly turned back, but Spaulding's encouragement kept him moving forward. Inside, he met Duncan Ross, a thin, spectacled man who claimed to represent the League. Ross examined Wilson's hair with an almost comical intensity, tugging at it to ensure it wasn't a wig, then declared him perfect for the role. The job: to sit in a small, stuffy office for 4 hours a day, copying the Encyclopaedia Britannica by hand. No interruptions, no leaving the room, just page after page of meticulous transcription. It was dull, pointless work, but the pay was real, and Wilson wasn't about to complain. For 8 weeks, he showed up every morning, scribbling entries from abbeys to astronomy, while the League's checks kept his bank account happy. Then, without warning, it all fell apart. One morning, Wilson arrived at the office to find a handwritten sign pinned to the door: "The Red-Headed League is dissolved. October 9th, 1891. No explanation. No farewell, just a locked door and a sinking feeling in his stomach. Confused and humiliated, Wilson asked around. The landlord of the building claimed to know nothing about the League or Duncan Ross. The name Ezekiah Hopkins drew blanks everywhere he inquired. Even Spaulding, who'd been so enthusiastic about the job, seemed oddly unconcerned, shrugging it off as a prank. Wilson, however, couldn't let it go. Had he been duped? Was the League a cruel joke at his expense? Or was there something more sinister at play? Desperate for answers, he sought out Sherlock Holmes, whose reputation for solving the unspeakable had reached even the back streets of Saxe-Coburg Square. Holmes listens to Wilson's tale with rapt attention, his eyes narrowing as he absorbs every detail. Watson, too, is captivated, sensing the peculiarity of the situation. Why would anyone pay a pawnbroker to copy an encyclopedia? Why the obsession with red hair? And why dissolve the League so abruptly? Holmes asks Wilson a barrage of questions about Spaulding's habits, the layout of the pawn shop, the exact wording of the advertisement. Wilson, flustered, does his best to answer, but it's clear he's out of his depth. Holmes dismisses him with a promise to investigate, his mind already racing. As Wilson shuffles out, Holmes turns to Watson, a spark of excitement in his eyes. "This is no ordinary case, Watson," he says, tapping his pipe. "There's a deeper game here, and I intend to find it." This first chapter lays the foundation for a mystery that's as bizarre as it is compelling. Jabez Wilson's story is the perfect hook for Sherlock Holmes, a seemingly trivial oddity that hints at something far more complex. For us, it's a reminder that even the most mundane details can hide a grand conspiracy. What's your take on the Red-Headed League? Is it a prank, a scam, or something else entirely? Drop your theories in the comments below, and let's see who's thinking like Sherlock. In the next chapter, we'll follow Holmes and Watson as they take their first steps into the investigation, uncovering clues that point to a plot far bigger than a pawnbroker's wounded pride. If you're hooked, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stay tuned for Chapter 2. Welcome back, mystery lovers. If you're just joining us, hit that rewind button and check out Chapter 1, where we met Jabez Wilson, a red-headed pawnbroker who stumbled into the bizarre world of the Red-Headed League. His strange tale of a too-good-to-be-true job and its sudden disappearance has piqued the interest of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Now, in Chapter 2, we're diving into the heart of the investigation as Holmes shifts from listener to detective, sniffing out the first clues in this peculiar puzzle. Picture the foggy streets of London, the clatter of horse-drawn carriages, and Holmes' razor-sharp mind cutting through the haze. Let's follow him and Watson as they take their first steps toward unraveling the mystery of the Red-Headed League. If you're as hooked as we are, don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with this thrilling adventure. As Jabez Wilson leaves 221B Baker Street, his heavy footsteps echoing down the stairs, Sherlock Holmes leans back in his armchair, his eyes half closed but his mind racing like a steam engine. Dr. Watson knows that look hits the calm before the storm, the moment when Holmes' brain starts piecing together fragments of a puzzle no one else can see. The Red-Headed League, with its absurd premise and sudden dissolution, is no ordinary case. To most, it might seem like a prank or a swindle, but to Holmes, it's a riddle wrapped in a conundrum. "Watson," he says, his voice low and deliberate, "this is not about a league or red hair. It's about something else, entirely something hidden." Watson, ever the loyal companion, is eager to see where this leads, but he knows Holmes won't reveal his full hand just yet. The detective's first move, to visit the scene of the crime, or rather, the scene of the strange Job Wilson's pawn shop in Saxe-Coburg Square. Holmes and Watson set out that very afternoon, braving the chilly London air. The city is alive with its usual chaos. Streets, vendors hawking pies, newsboys shouting headlines, and cabs rattling over cobblestones. Saxe-Coburg Square, however, is a quieter spot, tucked away from the main thoroughfares. It's a modest, slightly run-down area, with rows of small shops and houses leaning against each other like old friends. Wilson's pawn shop is easy to spot. Its 3 golden balls hanging above the door, a universal sign of pawnbroking. The shop itself is small, with a dusty window displaying an odd assortment of items, a tarnished pocket watch, a faded violin, and a stack of well-worn books. Holmes studies the storefront with the intensity of an artist examining a canvas, noting every detail: the chipped paint, the creaky door, the narrow alley running alongside. Watson watches, fascinated, as Holmes taps the pavement with his walking stick, as if testing the ground for secrets. Inside the shop, they meet Vincent Spaulding, Wilson's assistant, who's busy polishing a brass candlestick. Spaulding is a young man, wiry and alert, with a quick smile and a habit of glancing at the floor when he speaks. He's polite, almost too polite, as he answers Holmes' questions about the Red-Headed League. Yes, he saw the advertisement in the newspaper. Yes, he encouraged Mr. Wilson to apply. No, he doesn't know why the League shut down. His answers are smooth, but Holmes' keen eyes catch a flicker of unease in Spaulding's demeanor. Watson, too, senses something of Spaulding's eagerness to please feels rehearsed, like an actor playing a part. Holmes doesn't press too hard, though. He's playing a long game, gathering information without showing his cards. Instead, he asks about the shop's daily routine, Spaulding's duties, and the layout of the building. Spaulding mentions he often works in the basement, cataloguing items or developing photographs in a makeshift darkroom. Holmes nods, filing the detail away. Stepping outside, Holmes does something peculiar. He walks up and down the street, counting his paces and studying the neighboring buildings. To the casual observer, he might look like a man lost in thought. But Watson knows better. Holmes is mapping the terrain, building a mental picture of Saxe-Coburg Square. Next door to the pawn shop is a tobacconist, its window filled with pipes and snuff boxes. On the other side is a cobbler's shop, the smell of leather drifting out. But it's the building directly behind the pawn shop that catches Holmes' attention, a branch of the city and suburban bank. Its imposing stone facade a stark contrast to the humble shops around it. Holmes' eyes linger on the bank, and Watson can almost hear the gears turning in his friend's mind. "Interesting," Holmes murmurs, tapping his stick again. "Very interesting." Back at Baker Street, Holmes lights his pipe and begins to dissect the case. He lays out the facts for Watson. The Red-Headed League hired Wilson for a meaningless task, kept him away from his shop for 4 hours a day, and then vanished without a trace. The advertisement, the office in Pope's Court, the mysterious Duncan Russell seem designed to distract Wilson, but from what? Holmes suspects Spaulding, the assistant, is more than he seems. His enthusiasm for the League, his access to the shop, and his basement darkroom raise red flags. Watson suggests it might be a simple scam to fleece Wilson, but Holmes shakes his head. "No, Watson. The League paid Wilson, not the other way around. The money flowed in the wrong direction for a swindle. Holmes' theory is forming, but he's not ready to share it fully." Instead, he tells Watson they need more data, closer look at the pawn shop's surroundings and Spaulding's movements. This chapter shows Holmes at his best, observing, questioning, and piecing together clues that seem unrelated to everyone else. For us, it's a masterclass in deduction. A reminder that the smallest details are tapped pavement, a nervous glance can hold the key to a larger truth. What do you think Holmes noticed about the bank? And is Spaulding as innocent as he claims? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because we're just getting started. In Chapter 3, Holmes will take his investigation to the next level, digging deeper into the puzzle and uncovering connections that will blow your mind. If you're loving this journey through Victorian London, give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next twist in Sherlock Holmes and the mystery of the Red-Headed League. The gas lamps of London flicker as dusk settles over Saxe-Coburg Square, casting long shadows that dance across the cobblestones. Sherlock Holmes, with Dr. Watson at his side, is back in the quiet corner of the city, his mind a whirlwind of theories and suspicions. The pawn shop of Jabez Wilson, with its faded sign and dusty windows, sits at the heart of this mystery, but Holmes' attention is fixed on what lies beyond it. The city and suburban bank looming behind the shop has sparked something in the detective's razor-sharp mind. Why would a bizarre scheme like the Red-Headed League revolve around a humble pawnbroker? And what role does Vincent Spaulding, the overly helpful assistant, play in this strange game? In this chapter, we'll follow Holmes as he tightens his focus, sniffing out connections that turn an oddity into a high-stakes puzzle. Let's dive deeper into the clues and see what secrets the square holds. Holmes, ever the strategist, decides to approach the investigation with a mix of stealth and precision. He and Watson linger across the street from Wilson's pawn shop, blending into the evening crowd of shopkeepers locking up and labourers heading home. Holmes' eyes dart from the pawn shop to the bank, noting the layout of the buildings with a surveyor's precision. The bank's back wall, he observes, shares a boundary with the pawn shop's basement, separated only by a thin layer of brick and mortar. This proximity isn't a coincidence, Holmes murmurs to Watson, who's struggling to keep up with his friend's racing thoughts. To test his hunch, Holmes does something unexpected. He raps his walking stick sharply against the pavement, listening intently to the sound. It's a hollow, echoing thud, suggesting something beneath the surface, perhaps a cellar or a tunnel. Watson raises an eyebrow, but Holmes only smiles, his mind already 3 steps ahead to dig deeper, Holmes decides they need an ally with access to the bank. He leads Watson to the City and Suburban Bank, where they request a meeting with the manager, Mr. Merriweather, a portly man with a penchant for cigars and a skeptical frown. Merriweather is initially dismissive after all. What could a detective want with a respectable bank? But Holmes, with his knack for persuasion, drops just enough hints about a potential threat to get Merriweather's attention. He mentions the Red-Headed League, the pawn shop next door, and the curious behavior of Wilson's assistant. Merriweather's eyes widen when Holmes asks about the bank's vault, located in the basement directly adjacent to Wilson's property. The manager reveals that the vault currently holds a fortune in gold bullion, recently deposited by a French client. It's a tempting target for any thief bold enough to try. Holmes' face remains impassive, but Watson can tell he's struck gold of his owner motive. Back on the street, Holmes turns his attention to Vincent Spaulding. The assistant's role in pushing Wilson toward the Red-Headed League feels too deliberate, too calculated. Holmes suspects Spaulding is more than a mere pawn in this game, but proving it requires more than suspicion. He instructs Watson to keep an eye on the pawn shop while he makes inquiries about Spaulding's background. Holmes visits local taverns, newsstands, and even a photography shop, piecing together scraps of information about the young man. He learns that Spaulding, who sometimes goes by the name John Clay, has a reputation for being clever, perhaps too clever. Rumors swirl of a man matching his description, involved in petty thefts and clever cons, though nothing has ever been pinned on him. Holmes also discovers that Spaulding's photography hobby involves long hours in the pawn shop's basement, where he set up a dark room. To Holmes, this is no coincidence. It's a clue pointing to something hidden beneath the surface, literally. As night falls, Holmes and Watson regroup at Baker Street to compare notes. Holmes lays out his theory. The Red-Headed League was a ruse to get Jabez Wilson out of his shop for hours each day, leaving Spaulding or John Clayfree to work undisturbed. In the basement, the encyclopedia copying job was a distraction, designed to keep Wilson busy while something else was happening under his nose. The bank's gold bullion, stored so close to the pawn shop, is the real target. Holmes suspects Clay is digging a tunnel from the pawn shop's basement to the bank's vault, using his time alone to chip away at the wall separating the two. The hollow sound from the pavement supports this idea, hinting at a subterranean passage. Watson is stunned by the audacity of the plan, but Holmes warns that they're dealing with a cunning adversary. This John Clay, Holmes says, is no ordinary thief. He's a man of imagination and nerve. Holmes decides they need to catch Clay in the act. He proposes a stakeout at the bank, with Merriweather's cooperation, to intercept the thief before he can strike. Watson, ever ready for action, agrees, though he's nervous about what they might face. Holmes' plan is risky waiting for a criminal to make his move requires patience and precision, but it's their best chance to crack the case. As they prepare, Holmes is unusually quiet, his mind focused on the chessboard of motives and moves. For Watson, it's a reminder of why he follows Holmes, the thrill of seeing a master at work, turning chaos into clarity. This chapter pulls us deeper into the mystery, showing Holmes' genius in action as he connects the dots between a pawn shop, a bank, and a suspicious assistant. It's a classic Sherlock moment, taking seemingly unrelated pieces and weaving them into a pattern that points to a daring crime. What do you think John Clay's next move will be? And can Holmes outsmart him before it's too late? Drop your predictions in the comments below. In Chapter 4, we'll join Holmes, Watson, and their new ally Merryweather as they set their trap, ready to catch a thief in the act. If you're gripped by this tale, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stay tuned for the next twist in Sherlock Holmes and the mystery of the Red-Headed League. The night is dark and heavy over London, the kind of night where secrets seem to lurk in every shadow. Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, and Mr. Merryweather, the bank manager, are preparing for a high-stakes stakeout at the City and Suburban Bank in Saxe-Coburg Square. Holmes' theory that Vincent Spaulding, alias John Clay, is tunneling from Jabez Wilson's pawnshop to the bank's vault to steal a fortune in gold. Bullion has set the stage for a dramatic confrontation. The air is thick with anticipation. As the trio gathers, ready to outwit a cunning thief, in this chapter we'll follow Holmes as he orchestrates his plan, turning the tables on a criminal who thinks he's one step ahead. Picture the tension, the flickering gaslight, and the quiet hum of a city unaware of the drama unfolding beneath its streets. Let's dive into the heart of the trap. Holmes, ever the master of strategy, has enlisted Merryweather's help to secure the bank's cooperation. The manager, initially skeptical, is now fully on board, his pride in the bank's security overshadowed by the fear of a massive theft. The vault, Merryweather explains, is a fortress of iron and stone, but its proximity to the pawnshop's basement makes it vulnerable to a determined burglar. Holmes listens intently, his mind mapping out the logistics. The plan is simple but daring. They'll wait inside the bank's vault, in total darkness, for Clay to make his move. If Holmes is right, Clay will break through the wall from the pawnshop's basement, expecting an empty bank and an easy haul. Instead, he'll find Sherlock Holmes waiting. Watson, gripping his old service revolver, feels a mix of excitement and unease. He's seen Holmes pull off miracles before, but this feels like walking into a lion's den. The trio arrives at the bank under the cover of night, slipping through a side entrance to avoid prying eyes. Merryweather leads them to the vault, a cavernous chamber deep beneath the building. The air is cold and damp, the walls lined with crates of gleaming gold bullion, stacked like treasures in a pirate's hoard. Merryweather, still grumbling about the inconvenience, points out the stone floor, which forms the barrier between the vault and the pawnshop's basement. Holmes examines it closely, running his fingers along the seams, his face unreadable. He instructs Merryweather to douse the lights, plunging them into darkness so absolute that Watson can barely see his own hand. "We must be silent," Holmes whispers. "Clay is clever. The slightest sound could tip him off." They settle in, hidden behind a stack of crates, their breaths shallow. The silence broken only by the faint drip of water somewhere in the distance. As the hours crawl by, Watson's nerves are taut as a bowstring. He's no stranger to danger, having faced bullets in Afghanistan, but there's something unnerving about waiting in the dark for an unseen enemy. Merryweather fidgets, his heavy breathing a constant reminder of his impatience. Holmes, however, is a statue, his focus absolute. Watson marvels at his friend's ability to remain calm under pressure, his mind a steel trap holding every detail of the case. To pass the time, Watson mentally reviews the clues, the Red-Headed League's absurd job, Wilson's absence from the shop, Spaulding's basement, darkroom, the hollow pavement. It all points to a tunnel, a bold plan to bypass the bank's locks and guards. But Clay is no ordinary thief. Watson reminds himself. He's cunning, meticulous, and bold enough to orchestrate a scheme this elaborate. The question is, will he take the bait? Suddenly, A faint scraping sound breaks the silence, like a chisel against stone. Watson's heart leaps, and he feels Holmes tense beside him. The noise grows louder, more deliberate, a steady chipping, coming from beneath the floor. Mary stifles a gasp, but Holmes grips his arm, signaling absolute quiet. The scraping stops, replaced by a low grinding, as if a heavy stone is being pried loose. Watson's grip tightens on his revolver, his pulse pounding in his ears. Holmes leans close, his voice barely audible. He's here. The plan is working. But the danger is real. If Clay suspects they're waiting, he could bolt or worse, come prepared for a fight. Watson steadies himself, trusting Holmes' instincts. But the darkness feels suffocating, the unknown pressing in from all sides. This chapter cranks up the tension, placing us right in the vault with Holmes, Watson, and Merriweather as they wait for their quarry. It's a classic Sherlock moment, turning the hunter into the hunted, using brains over brawn to outmaneuver a foe. The stakes are high, the atmosphere electric, and the outcome uncertain. Will Clay walk into Holmes' trap, or does he have a trick up his sleeve? What do you think will happen when that tunnel breaks through? Share your predictions in the comments below. In Chapter 5, we'll witness the climax of this daring stakeout as Holmes' plan comes to a head, revealing just how clever or dangerous John Clay really is. If you're on the edge of your seat, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stay tuned for the next chapter of Sherlock Holmes and the mystery of the Red-Headed League. The air in the city and suburban bank's vault is thick with tension. The darkness so complete it feels like a weight pressing down on Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, and Mr. Merriweather, hidden behind crates of gold bullion. They wait in silence, their breaths shallow, ears straining for every sound. The faint scraping from beneath the stone floor has grown louder, more insistent, a rhythmic chipping that signals John Clay, alias Vincent Spaulding, is mere moments from breaking through, from the pawn shop's basement next door. Holmes' theory that the Red-Headed League was a ruse to keep Jabez Wilson away while Clay tunneled to the bank's vaultas led them to this critical moment. The trap is set, but the outcome hangs in the balance. Will Clay walk blindly into Holmes' ambush, or does this cunning thief have a plan of his own? In this chapter, we'll witness the heart-pounding climax of the stakeout, as Holmes faces off against a criminal as clever as he is bold. Picture the cold, damp vault, the glint of gold in the shadows, and the pulse of danger in the air. Let's dive into the showdown that will unravel the mystery of the Red-Headed League. The scraping stops abruptly, replaced by a low, grinding creak, like a slab being eased aside. Watson's hand tightens on his revolver, his military instincts kicking in. Merriweather, the bank manager, shifts nervously, his bulk making the crates creak, and Holmes shoots him a sharp glance to stay still. A faint sliver of light pierces the darkness as a stone in the vault floor shifts, revealing a narrow gap. Dust swirls, and the light grows stronger, a lantern, held by someone below. Holmes' eyes are locked on the gap, his body coiled like a spring, ready to pounce. Watson can barely breathe, his heart pounding as he realizes this is the moment they've been waiting for. The lantern's glow reveals a gloved hand, pushing the stone aside with practiced ease. A head emerges, cautious but confident, and there he is, John Clay, his sharp features illuminated, his eyes scanning the vault for any sign of trouble. He's younger than Watson expected, with a lean, almost aristocratic face, but there's a hardness in his gaze that betrays his criminal intent. Clay moves swiftly, pulling himself through the hole with the agility of a cat. He's dressed in dark clothes, smudged with dirt from his tunneling, and carries a small satchel, likely for the gold. For a moment, it seems he hasn't noticed the trio hidden in the shadows. Holmes waits, letting Clay fully enter the vault, giving him just enough rope to hang himself. Clay sets down his lantern, its light casting eerie shadows across the crates, and begins inspecting the nearest stack of bullion, his fingers tracing the edges as if calculating how much he can carry. Watson marvels at the man's nerve breaking into a bank vault with such calm precision takes a rare kind of boldness. But Holmes is ready. With a sudden movement, he steps forward, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Good evening, Mr. Clay. I'm afraid your plans have been interrupted." Clay freezes, his hand halfway to his satchel. For a split second, his eyes dart to the hole, calculating his escape, but Holmes is already blocking the path. Watson steps out, revolver leveled, while Merriweather, flustered but determined, brandishes a heavy cane. Clay's composure cracks, but only for a moment. He flashes a defiant smile, his voice smooth as silk. "Sherlock Holmes, I presume I've heard of you. A pity we meet under such circumstances." There's no panic in his tone, only a calculating confidence that makes Watson uneasy. Holmes, unfazed, steps closer, his own voice calm but laced with steel. "Your red-headed league was a clever ruse, Clay, but not clever enough. The game is up." Clay's smile widens, and he shrugs, as if caught in a minor inconvenience. "A game, is it? Well, Mr. Holmes, you've played your part well, but are you sure you've won?" Before Holmes can respond, Clay makes his move. With a flick of his wrist, he hurls his lantern at the crates, plunging the vault into near darkness as the glass shatters and the flame gutters out. Watson hears a scuffle, the sound of boots scraping stone, and realizes Clay is diving for the tunnel. Holmes lunges, grabbing Clay's arm, but the thief is slippery, twisting free and scrambling toward the hole. Watson fires a warning shot, the crack echoing in the vault. But Clay is already halfway through, his legs disappearing into the darkness. Merriweather shouts in alarm, stumbling over a crate, while Holmes, quick as lightning, dives after Clay, vanishing into the tunnel. Watson, cursing under his breath, follows, his revolver still in hand, determined not to let Holmes face the thief alone. The tunnel is narrow, damp, and claustrophobic, barely wide enough for a man to crawl through. Watson's knees scrape against rough stone as he follows the sounds of struggle ahead. The air smells of earth and sweat, and the faint glow of a distant light. Perhaps another lantern guides him. He hears Holmes' voice, sharp and commanding, ordering Clay to surrender, followed by a grunt and the thud of a fist. Watson crawls faster, his heart racing, until he emerges into the pawnshop's basement, a cluttered space filled with crates and Spaulding's photography equipment. In the dim light, he sees Holmes grappling with Clay, the two men locked in a fierce struggle. Clay is wiry but strong, fighting with the desperation of a cornered animal. Watson raises his revolver, but the risk of hitting Holmes is too great. Instead, he grabs a heavy tripod from Spaulding's darkroom and swings it, catching Clay across the shoulder. The thief stumbles, and Holmes seizes the moment, pinning him to the ground with a wrestler's precision. Merriweather, panting and disheveled, arrives just as Holmes secures Clay's wrists with a pair of handcuffs he always carries. The bank manager is apoplectic, shouting about the audacity of the crime, but Holmes silences him with a raised hand. "The gold is safe," Mr. Merriweather," he says, his voice steady despite the exertion, "and we have our man, Clay, now." Subdued, glares at Holmes with a mix of resentment and admiration. "You're good, Holmes," he mutters, "but I nearly had it." Holmes' lips twitch in a faint smile. "Nearly, Mr. Clay, is not enough." Watson, catching his breath, marvels at how close they came to disaster. The tunnel, expertly dug, was inches from the vault's floor. A testament to Clay's skill and ambition. Had Holmes not intervened, the gold would be gone, and the Red-Headed League would be a forgotten footnote, as they hand Clay over to the police, who arrive after Merriweather's frantic summons. Holmes takes a moment to inspect the basement. He finds tools, a lantern, and a pile of dirt carefully hidden behind crates proof of Clay's meticulous work. The photography equipment, Watson realizes, was a cover, giving Clay an excuse to spend hours below ground. Holmes nods approvingly, almost as if he respects his adversary's ingenuity. For Watson, it's a reminder of why Holmes is unmatched, his ability to see through layers of deception, to turn a pawnbroker's odd story into a foiled heist. The Red-Headed League, with its absurd premise, was the perfect distraction, keeping Wilson busy while Clay dug his way to a fortune. This chapter delivers the pulse-pounding payoff we've been building toward, with Holmes outwitting a formidable foe in a battle of brains and nerve. It's Sherlock at his finest, calm under pressure, always one step ahead, even when the odds seem stacked against him. What did you think of Clay's daring escape attempt? And how impressive was Holmes' trap? Drop your reactions in the comments below. In Chapter 6, we'll explore the aftermath of the heist, as Holmes ties up the loose ends and reveals the full scope of the Red-Headed League's deception. If you're loving this adventure, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stay tuned for the next chapter of Sherlock Holmes and the mystery of the Red-Headed League. The dust has settled in the cramped basement of Jabez Wilson's pawn shop, where Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, and the now handcuffed John Clay stand amidst the evidence of a thwarted heist. The police have arrived, their lanterns casting harsh light on the tunnel that nearly led to the city and suburban bank's vault. Clay, still defiant despite his capture, is led away in irons, his sharp eyes glaring at Holmes with a mix of resentment and grudging respect. Mr. Merry, the bank manager, is a bundle of nerves, alternating between gratitude and indignation as he surveys the near disaster. The gold bullion, safe behind the vault's stone floor, gleams untouched, a silent testament to Holmes' brilliance. But the mystery of the Red-Headed League isn't fully solved yet. How did John Clay orchestrate such an elaborate scheme? And what was the true purpose behind the bizarre ruse? In this chapter, we'll follow Holmes as he ties up the loose ends, peeling back the layers of deception to reveal the full scope of Clay's plan. Picture the flickering gaslight, the clink of handcuffs, and Holmes' mind working at lightning speed to connect every dot. Let's dive into the aftermath and uncover the truth behind the Red-Headed League. As the police escort Clay out of the pawn shop, Holmes remains in the basement, his keen eyes scanning the scene. The tunnel, expertly dug with a precision that speaks to Clay's skill, stretches from the pawn shop's basement to just beneath the bank's vault. Shovels, picks, and a pile of carefully concealed dirt are tucked behind crates, alongside Vincent Spaulding's so-called photography equipment, clever cover for his subterranean work. Holmes points out a small stack of chemicals and glass plates, ostensibly for developing photographs, but likely used to mask the sounds and smells of digging. Watson, still catching his breath from the scuffle, marvels at the audacity of it. All to think, he says, all this under Wilson's nose, while he was copying the Encyclopaedia Britannica. Holmes nods, his expression thoughtful. A distraction, Watson. A beautifully crafted distraction. Clay needed Wilson out of the way, and the League was his masterpiece. Back at 221B Baker Street, Holmes and Watson settle by the fire to piece together the puzzle. Holmes lights his pipe, the familiar ritual calming his restless mind, and begins to lay out the full scheme for Watson's benefit and ours. The Red-Headed League, Holmes explains, was never about red hair or philanthropy. It was a meticulously planned diversion designed to remove Jabez Wilson from his shop for 4 hours each day, giving Clay uninterrupted access to the basement, the advertisement in the newspaper, the crowded office in Pope's Court. The mysterious Duncan Rossell were part of an elaborate charade. Holmes suspects Duncan Ross was Clay himself, or an accomplice, playing the role of the League's representative to ensure Wilson was hired. The choice of red hair was a stroke of genius, Holmes admits, because it was specific enough to limit applicants but plausible enough to avoid suspicion. Wilson's fiery locks made him the perfect mark. Holmes traces the timeline. Clay, posing as Vincent Spaulding, took the job at Wilson's pawnshop months earlier, likely after learning of the bank's gold deposit next door. His low wages, half what Wilson usually paid, were a deliberate ploy to secure the position without arousing suspicion. Once employed, Clay planted the idea of the Red-Headed League, using the newspaper ad to lure Wilson into the trap. The job of copying the Encyclopaedia Britannica was absurd but believable, appealing to Wilson's practical nature and his need for extra income. For 8 weeks, Clay dug his tunnel, working in the basement while Wilson was away, carefully disposing of dirt and using his photography hobby as a cover for his frequent trips below. The sudden dissolution of the League, Holmes explains, came when Clay was ready to make his move. The tunnel was nearly complete, and he no longer needed Wilson distracted. Watson listens, fascinated, as Holmes reveals the depth of Clay's cunning. But why the theatrics? Watson asks. Why not simply rob the bank at night? Holmes smiles, puffing on his pipe. Because, Watson, a nighttime break-in would have drawn attention guards, alarms, patrols. Clay needed time, uninterrupted. Time to dig. The League ensured Wilson's absence during the day, when the shop was open and suspicion was low. It was bold, audacious, and very nearly successful. Watson shakes his head, marveling at the lengths Clay went to. The man's criminal record, which Holmes uncovered earlier, paints him as a masterminder, gentleman thief with a flair for the dramatic, educated at Oxford but drawn to a life of crime. His alias, John Clay, is one of many, and his reputation among London's underworld is one of brilliance and nerve. Holmes and Watson pay a final visit to Jabez Wilson to explain the truth. The pawnbroker, still bewildered, is waiting at his shop, his red hair as bright as ever, but his spirits dampened by the realization he was duped. Holmes, with his usual tact, softens the blow, assuring Wilson that his role in the affair helped catch a dangerous criminal. "You were the key, Mr. Wilson," Holmes says, "though you didn't know it. Your absence allowed us to trap Clay." Wilson, mollified but still grumpy, mutters about the 8 weeks wasted on the encyclopedia. Watson stifles a smile, knowing Wilson will never fully grasp the scale of the plot he stumbled into. Merriweather, meanwhile, is effusive in his gratitude, promising to sing Holmes' praises to the bank's directors. Holmes waves it off, more interested in the intellectual challenge than the accolades. As they leave the pawnshop, Holmes reflects, On the case's elegance, crime, Watson, is often crude, but this was art. Clay wove a tapestry of deception, and we merely unpicked the threads. Watson nods, struck by the contrast between Holmes' relentless logic and Clay's creative flair. For the audience, it's a reminder that the best mysteries are battles of wits, where every clue is a move in a grand chess game. The Red-Headed League, with its absurd premise, was a perfect cover for a heist that could have shaken London's financial world. Thanks to Holmes, the gold is safe, and Clay is behind bars, but the story lingers as a testament to human ingenuity. Both sides of the law. This chapter wraps up the core of the mystery, revealing the intricate machinery behind Clay's scheme and Holmes' triumph in dismantling it. It's a satisfying payoff, showing how a seemingly silly story about red hair hid a daring crime. What did you think of Clay's elaborate plan, and how about Holmes' knack for seeing through it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. In Chapter 7, we'll explore the fallout of the case, as Holmes and Watson reflect on its lessons and face new questions about Clay's accomplices. If you're hooked on this tale, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stay tuned for the next chapter of Sherlock Holmes and the mystery of the Red-Headed League. The fog of London has settled over Baker Street once more, wrapping 2-1B in a quiet cocoon as Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson sit by the fire. The excitement of the Red-Headed League case still fresh in their minds. John Clay is behind bars, the city and suburban bank's gold is secure, and Jabez Wilson, though still grumbling about his wasted weeks, is none the worse for wear. Yet, as the embers crackle and Holmes puffs on his pipe, there's a sense that the case isn't entirely closed. Every puzzle, no matter how neatly solved, leaves threads, dangling questions unanswered, possibilities unexplored. Was John Clay working alone, or were there others pulling the strings? And what does this audacious scheme reveal about the criminal mind? In this chapter, we'll join Holmes and Watson as they reflect on the case, tie up lingering questions, and ponder the deeper lessons of the Red-Headed League. Picture the cozy glow of the sitting room, the clink of teacups, and Holmes' mind still turning over the details like a jeweler inspecting a gem. Let's dive into the aftermath and see what insights await. Holmes leans back in his armchair, his long fingers steepled, his eyes half closed as he exhales a plume of smoke. Watson, scribbling notes for his next chronicle, can't help but marvel at how effortlessly Holmes unraveled Clay's scheme. The Red-Headed League was a masterstroke of deception, a plan so bold it bordered on theatrical. Yet Holmes saw through it, connecting the dots from a pawnbroker's odd job to a tunnel beneath a bank. "What strikes me, Watson," Holmes says, breaking the silence, "is the imagination behind it. Clay didn't just plan a theft. He crafted a story. The League, the advertisement, the Encyclopaedia was a performance, and Wilson was the unwitting audience." Watson nods, struck by the analogy. Clay, with his Oxford education and gentlemanly charm, wasn't just a thief. He was a storyteller, weaving a narrative to mask his true intent. But one question nags at Watson: was Clay truly alone? The scale of the operation, the fake office in Pope's Court, the mysterious Duncan Ross, the forged document suggests an accomplice, or perhaps a network. Holmes agrees, his brow furrowing slightly. Clay is clever, but even he couldn't manage every detail single-handedly. The League required resources, money for Wilson's wages, a rented office, a forged identity for Ezekiah Hopkins, Holmes. Suspects Duncan Ross was Clay himself, adopting a disguise to interview Wilson and ensure the pawnbroker's compliance. But the logistics, the newspaper ad, the crowd of red-headed applicants, the swift dissolution of the league point to at least one other player. Holmes has already sent telegrams to Scotland Yard, urging them to investigate Pope's Court and trace the source of the advertisement. For now, though, no clear answers have emerged, and Clay, tight-lipped in custody, offers no confessions. Watson raises another point. Why target Wilson's pawnshop specifically? Holmes explains that the choice was no accident. The pawnshop's location, directly adjacent to the bank's vault, was the linchpin of Clay's plan. By securing a job there, Clay gained access to the perfect staging ground, his low wages insured. Wilson hired him, and his photography hobby provided a plausible excuse for spending hours in the basement. Clay chose Wilson not for his red hair, Holmes says, but for his shop. The hair was merely a convenient pretext, a way to make the league seem exclusive. Watson shakes his head, amazed at how every detail, no matter how absurd, served a purpose. The red-headed league wasn't just a distraction. It was a tailored trap, exploiting Wilson's financial struggles and his pride in his distinctive feature to close the case. Holmes and Watson make a final visit to Saxe-Coburg Square, where the pawnshop now feels like a stage after the curtain has fallen. Jabez Wilson is back at work, pawing through a tray of trinkets, his red hair as vibrant as ever, but his mood sour. He's still smarting from the humiliation of being duped, though Holmes' explanation has softened the blow. You played a vital role, Mr. Wilson, Holmes says, his tone diplomatic. Without your story, we'd never have caught a dangerous criminal. Wilson grunts, unconvinced, but agrees to hire a new assistant this time, with stricter oversight. The bank, meanwhile, is bustling with activity. As Mr. Merriweather oversees repairs to the vault floor, sealing the tunnel for good, he presses Holmes for details, eager to boast about the bank's security, but Holmes demurs, more interested in the intellectual puzzle than public praise. Back at Baker Street, Holmes reflects on the broader implications of the case. Crime, Watson, thrives on distraction. Clay's genius was in creating a spectacle so bizarre it obscured his true aim. We must always look beyond the obvious, past the noise, to find the truth. Watson nods, scribbling the words in his notebook, knowing they'll make a fine addition to his story. For him, the case is a reminder of Holmes' unique gift, the ability to see patterns where others see chaos. The Red-Headed League, with its outlandish premise, was a perfect challenge for Holmes, testing his ability to strip away the absurd and uncover the sinister. For the audience, it's a lesson in observation, paying attention to the details that others overlook, whether in a mystery or in life. As the fire dies down, Holmes picks up his violin, drawing the bow across the strings in a slow, mournful tune. Watson senses his friend is already moving on, his mind hungry for the next challenge. The Red-Headed League is solved, but London's underworld is never quiet for long. For now, though, they've thwarted a daring heist and exposed a criminal mind at work. The case will live on in Watson's chronicles, a testament to Holmes' brilliance and the strange, tangled web of human ambition. This chapter gives us a moment to breathe, reflecting on the ingenuity of both the criminal and the detective while tying up the case's loose ends. It's a chance to appreciate Holmes' method and the artistry of a well-crafted mystery. What did you think of Clay's theatrical scheme? And do you think Holmes missed anything in his rush to close the case? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. In Chapter 8, we'll delve into the ripple effects of the case, as Holmes and Watson face new questions and unexpected consequences from their victory. If you're still hooked on this adventure, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stay tuned for the next chapter of Sherlock Holmes and the mystery of the Red-Headed League. The glow of the fire at 221B Baker Street has faded to embers, and the quiet of the night settles over Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson as they linger over the Red-Headed League case. John Clay is in custody, his audacious tunnel sealed, and the city and suburban bank's gold remains untouched, thanks to Holmes' quick thinking. Jabez Wilson, the unwitting pawnbroker, is back to his routine, grumbling but safe. Yet, as the gas lamps flicker outside and the city hums with its endless secrets, the case leaves echoes ripples that spread beyond the foiled heist. Was Clay truly the mastermind, or were there unseen hands guiding his plan? And what does this peculiar adventure reveal about the underbelly of London's criminal world? In this chapter, we'll explore the aftermath of the Red-Headed League, as Holmes and Watson confront new questions, unexpected consequences, and the lingering shadow of a crime that was almost perfect. Picture the smoky air of Baker Street, the scratch of Watson's pen, and Holmes' restless mind chasing threads that refuse to stay tied. Let's dive into the fallout and see where this mystery leads next. Holmes, sprawled in his armchair, is unusually pensive, his pipe unlit and his fingers drumming a restless rhythm on the armrest. Watson, sorting through his notes, senses his friend's unease. The case, though solved, has left Holmes with a nagging sense of incompletion. "Watson," he says at last, his voice low, "a man like Clay doesn't act alone without reason. His plan was bold, but it required resources, funds, connections, perhaps a patron." Watson raises an eyebrow, intrigued. Clay's scheme was elaborate, yes, but the idea of a larger network adds a new layer of intrigue. Holmes explains that the Red-Headed Leagues set up the rented office in Pope's Court. The forged documents, the crowd of red-headed applicants suggests a level of organization beyond one man's means. Clay, with his Oxford education and gentlemanly air, might be a front for someone higher up, someone with deeper pockets and darker motives. To test this theory, Holmes decides to dig deeper into Clay's background. He sends a series of telegrams. 2 contacts at Scotland Yard, old informants, and even a shady figure in London's East End known for trading secrets. While waiting for replies, he and Watson revisit the evidence from the pawn shop. The basement, now cordoned off by police, yields new clues under Holmes' meticulous inspection. Among the photography equipment, Holmes finds a ledger hidden behind, a stack of glass plates, its pages filled with cryptic numbers and initials. It's not a smoking gun, but it hints at transactions payments, perhaps, or debts that tie Clay to others. Watson, peering over Holmes' shoulder, suggests it could be a record of supplies for the tunnel, but Holmes shakes his head. These are too regular, too precise. This is a ledger of patronage, Watson. Clay was funded, and I intend to find out by whom. Their next stop is Scotland Yard, where Inspector Lestrade, a frequent ally and occasional rival, is overseeing Clay's interrogation. Lestrade, with his ferret-like face and skeptical smirk, greets Holmes with a mix of respect and irritation. "You've done it again, Holmes," he says, "but your thief isn't talking. Not a word about accomplices or the League." Holmes, unfazed, requests a moment with Clay. In a dimly lit cell, Clay sits with the same defiant confidence he showed in the vault, his sharp eyes meeting Holmes without flinching. "You've won this round, Mr. Holmes, Clay says, his voice smooth. But the game is larger than you think. Holmes presses him about the ledger, the office in Pope's Court, and the mysterious Ezekiah Hopkins, but Clay only smiles, offering nothing but cryptic taunts. There are always bigger fish, he says, leaning back against the wall. Holmes leaves the cell, his expression unreadable, but Watson knows his friend is more determined than ever. Back at Baker Street, the telegrams begin to arrive, painting a fragmented picture. One informant confirms that the office in Pope's Court was rented under a false name, paid for in cash by a man matching Clay's description, but the funds came from an untraceable source, possibly a foreign account. Another report links Clay to a shadowy figure known only as the Professor, a rumored mastermind in London's underworld. Watson, intrigued, presses Holmes for details, but Holmes admits the trail is thin. The Professor is a ghost, Watson. Name whispered in taverns, never confirmed. If he's behind Clay, he's covered his tracks well. The idea of a criminal mastermind orchestrating the Red-Headed League adds a chilling dimension to the case, suggesting that Clay's heist was a single move in a much larger game. Meanwhile, the ripple effects of the case spread beyond the criminal world. The city and suburban bank, eager to avoid scandal, issues a discreet statement praising its security measures while quietly thanking Holmes. Mr. Merriweather, the bank manager, visits 221B to deliver a generous check, which Holmes accepts with a dismissive wave. The puzzle was payment enough, he says, though Watson suspects the funds will keep their landlady, Mrs. Hudson, happy for months. Jabez Wilson, too, is adjusting to life post-league. He's hired a new assistant at Jaw, reliable man with no interest in photography, and has taken to double-checking his basement daily, still shaken by how close he came to ruin. Watson, ever the optimist, hopes Wilson has learned to question offers that seem too good to be true, but Holmes is less charitable. Wilson's folly was his trust, he says, a common failing, but a dangerous one. As the days pass, Holmes grows restless, his mind circling back to the elusive Professor. He spends hours poring over maps, bank records, and old case files, searching for connections. Watson, meanwhile, begins drafting his account of the Red-Headed League, capturing the absurdity and brilliance of the scheme. He reflects on what the case reveals about Holmes' method, the ability to see beyond the surface, to find meaning in the mundane. The Red-Headed League, with its ridiculous premise, was a perfect challenge for Holmes, testing his knack for uncovering truth in a web of lies. For the audience, it's a reminder that the world is full of hidden patterns, waiting for someone sharp enough to see them. This chapter stretches the boundaries of the case, hinting at a larger criminal network and showing Holmes' relentless pursuit of truth, even when the case seems closed. It's a testament to his genius and his obsession while keeping us hooked on the possibility of more to come. What do you think about the mysterious Professor? Is he real, or just a shadow cast by Clay's bravado? And how will Holmes chase this new lead? Drop your theories in the comments below. In Chapter 9, we'll see Holmes confront the limits of his investigation as he grapples with unanswered questions and prepares for whatever comes next. If you're loving this journey through Victorian London, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stay tuned for the next chapter of Sherlock Holmes and the mystery of the Red-Headed League. The streets of London are cloaked in a damp mist, the kind that seeps into your bones and blurs the edges of the world. At 221B Baker Street, Sherlock Holmes paces before the fire, his shadow flickering across the walls, his mind restless despite the triumph of the red-headed league case. John Clay is behind bars, the bank's gold is safe, and Jabez Wilson's pawnshop hums along, oblivious to the drama it hosted. Yet, for Holmes, the case feels unfinished, like a melody cut off before its final note. The hint of a larger criminal network, possibly led by the enigmatic professor, gnaws at him, a puzzle he can't yet solve. Dr. Watson, ever the steady presence, watches his friend with a mix of concern and admiration, knowing Holmes' relentless pursuit of truth often comes at a cost. In this chapter, we'll explore the boundaries of Holmes' genius as he grapples with unanswered questions and the elusive nature of the criminal underworld. Picture the smoky air of Baker Street, the clatter of a passing hansom cab, and Holmes, mind wrestling with shadows. Let's dive into the final threads of this mystery and see where they lead. Holmes, his pipe now lit, fills the room with curls of smoke as he dissects the case for Watson. The Red-Headed League was a triumph of deduction, he admits, but its success only highlights what remains out of reach. The ledger found in the pawnshop's basement, with its cryptic numbers and initials, is a tantalizing clue, but without more context, it's a lock without a key. Holmes has spent days cross-referencing the entries with known criminal enterprises, but the trail is maddeningly faint. Clay was no lone wolf, Holmes says, his voice edged with frustration. Someone funded the League, someone with the means to rent an office, forge documents, and orchestrate a spectacle. Yet they've vanished like smoke. Watson, flipping through his notes, suggests that Clay himself might hold the answers, but Holmes shakes his head. Clay is cleverer than that. He'll take his secrets to the gallows if he must. Determined to chase the lead, Holmes turns to his network of informants, the irregulars, as he calls them. These are the street urchins, cab drivers, and barmaids who see and hear what others miss. He dispatches messages to his most trusted contacts, including Wiggins, the leader of his Baker Street irregulars, a ragtag group of boys who can slip through London's alleys unnoticed. Wiggins reports back within hours, his news sparse, but intriguing whispers of a man matching Clay's description, meeting with a well-dressed stranger in a tavern near Pope's Court weeks before the League appeared. The stranger, described as tall and scholarly, paid in crisp banknotes and spoke with a slight accent, possibly German or French. Holmes' eyes light up at this, but Wiggins has little else to offer. The trail, once again, fades into the fog. Holmes decides to revisit Pope's Court, the site of the League's fake office, hoping to uncover something the police overlooked. He and Watson navigate the narrow alley, its cobblestones slick with rain, until they reach the nondescript building where Jabez Wilson once copied the Encyclopaedia Britannica. The office is empty now, its door boarded up, its windows dark. Holmes, with his usual disregard for propriety, picks the lock and slips inside, Watson close behind. The room is bare, save for a few scraps of paper and a broken chair, but Holmes examines it with the intensity of an archaeologist at a dig. He finds faint ink stains on the floor, suggesting a hastily cleared desk, and a torn corner of a letter bearing the initials MS. Watson speculates it could be a random note, but Holmes pockets it, his instincts telling him it's another piece of the puzzle. Back at Baker Street, Holmes lays out the evidence on his cluttered table, the ledger, the letter fragment, and a map of London marked with Clay's known haunts. He theorizes that the MS could belong to the elusive professor, whose reputation as a criminal mastermind grows with every whispered rumor. Watson, ever practical, cautions Holmes against chasing phantoms. "We've caught Clay," he says. "The gold is safe. Isn't that enough?" Holmes' smile is thin, almost wistful. For most, perhaps. But the truth, Watson, is never enough until it's whole. "There's a mind behind Clay's mind, and I won't rest until I know it." Watson nods, understanding that this drive this obsession is what makes Holmes both brilliant and human. The case's ripples extend beyond Holmes' investigation. The city and suburban bank, eager to move past the near scandal, has tightened its security, with Mr. Merriweather overseeing new locks and guards. Jabez Wilson, meanwhile, has become something of a local curiosity, his tale of the Red-Headed League spreading through Saxe-Coburg Square. Customers now visit his pawn shop not just to haggle over trinkets but to hear the story of his bizarre job, which Wilson recounts with a mix of pride and embarrassment. Watson, amused, notes that Wilson's red hair has become his calling card, drawing more business than ever. Holmes, however, is less interested in the pawnbroker's newfound fame than in the broader lesson of the case, the power of misdirection. Clay's genius was in making the absurd plausible, he tells Watson. The League was a mirror trick, reflecting one truth to hide another. As the chapter closes, Holmes picks up his violin, playing a soft, haunting melody that seems to echo his restless thoughts. Watson, finishing his notes, reflects on the case's deeper meaning. The Red-Headed League was more than a heist. It was a study in human nature, greed, trust, and the lengths to which a clever mind will go to deceive. For Holmes, it's a reminder that even the sharpest deduction has its limits, that some mysteries linger just out of reach. For the audience, it's a chance to see the detective not just as a solver of crimes, but as a man driven by an insatiable need to understand. The Red-Headed League may be solved, but its shadows linger, hinting at battles yet to come. This chapter dives into the heart of Holmes' relentless pursuit, showing both his brilliance and his frustration when faced with an incomplete puzzle. It's a moment to appreciate the complexity of his character and the allure of a mystery that refuses to fully unravel. What do you think about the mysterious professor and the MS clue? Is Holmes chasing a ghost, or is there a bigger game afoot? Drop your theories in the comments below. In Chapter 10, we'll wrap up this adventure, as Holmes and Watson look back on the Red-Headed League and prepare for whatever challenges London's underworld throws their way next. If you're still hooked, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stay tuned for the final chapter of Sherlock Holmes and the mystery of the Red-Headed League. The fog of London clings to the windows of 2-1B Baker Street, casting a soft veil over the familiar clutter of Sherlock Holmes' sitting room. The fire crackles low, its warmth a quiet counterpoint to the restless energy of the man pacing before it. Sherlock Holmes, his pipe forgotten on the table, moves with the intensity of a caged panther, his mind still tangled in the threads of the Red-Headed League case. Dr. Watson, seated with his notebook open, watches his friend with a mix of awe and concern, knowing that even a solved case leaves Holmes hungry for more. John Clay is in custody, the bank's gold is safe, and Jabez Wilson's pawnshop hums along, its owner blissfully unaware of the larger game he stumbled into. Yet, the shadow of the elusive professor and the cryptic clues left behind a ledger, a torn letter marked M, linger like ghosts. In this final chapter, we'll draw the curtain on the Red-Headed League as Holmes and Watson reflect on its lessons, confront the limits of their victory, and look toward the mysteries that await in London's endless underworld. Picture the glow of gas lamps, the scratch of Watson's pen, and Holmes' mind weaving a tapestry of insight from a case that began with a pawnbroker's red hair. Let's close this adventure and see what truths it leaves behind. Holmes stops pacing and leans against the mantel, his sharp eyes fixed on the fire. "Watson," he says, his voice low but charged. The Red-Headed League was a masterpiece of misdirection, a puzzle designed to dazzle and deceive. Yet, its brilliance lies not in what we solved, but in what we didn't. Watson, pen poised, knows this mood. Holmes is dissecting the case not just for answers, but for meaning. The scheme, with its absurd premise of hiring red-headed men to copy an encyclopedia, was a stroke of criminal genius, orchestrated by John Clay to mask a daring heist. But the hints of a larger network, possibly led by the mysterious professor, suggest that Clay was a piece on a bigger chessboard. Holmes, ever the hunter, is frustrated by the trail's end, but he's also invigorated. Every case, Watson, is a lesson in the human mind, its cunning, its flaws, its endless capacity for invention. Watson, eager to capture the case's essence for his readers, presses Holmes to recount its key moments. The story began with Jabez Wilson, a simple pawnbroker drawn into a bizarre job by his assistant, Vincent Spaulding, alias John Clay. The Red-Headed League, with its promise of easy money, was a ruse to keep Wilson away from his shop, allowing Clay to tunnel toward the bank's vault. Holmes, with his uncanny ability to see through deception, pieced it together: the advertisement, the fake office in Pope's Court, the sudden dissolution of the League, his stakeout with Watson and Mr. Merriweather, the bank manager, culminated in a dramatic confrontation in the vault, where Clay's nerve nearly matched Holmes' wit. The tunnel, the photography equipment, the ledger all pointed to a plan as meticulous as it was bold. Yet, the lingering question of Clay's backers keeps Holmes' mind restless to tie up the case's loose ends. Holmes revisits his notes, spread across the table like a map of London itself. The ledger from the pawnshop's basement, with its cryptic initials and numbers, remains a puzzle. Holmes suspects it tracks payments from Clay's mysterious patron, but without more evidence, it's a dead end. He sent inquiries to banks in Paris and Berlin, chasing rumors of foreign accounts linked to the professor, but responses are slow and the trail grows cold. The torn letter with MS, possibly the professor's initials, is no clear answers, though Holmes has a hunch it connects to a larger criminal syndicate. Crime, Watson, is like a spider's web, he says, sketching a diagram of connections. Clay was a thread, but the spider remains hidden. Watson, ever practical, suggests they've done enough. Clay is caught. The gold is safe, but Holmes' eyes gleam with the fire of a man who lives for the chase. The case's impact ripples through London. At Saxe-Coburg Square, Jabez Wilson has become a reluctant celebrity, his pawnshop now a stop for curious locals eager to hear about the Red-Headed League. Wilson, still prickly about being duped, has hired a new assistant, a stolid, grey-haired man unlikely to dream up elaborate schemes. He's also installed a lock on the basement door, a precaution that makes Watson chuckle. The city and suburban bank, meanwhile, has doubled its security, with Mr. Merriweather overseeing new iron gates and round-the-clock guards. The bank's directors, grateful but discreet, send Holmes a silver cigar case as a token of thanks, which he tosses into a drawer with a dismissive grunt. The reward, Watson, is the puzzle itself, he says. though Watson suspects Mrs. Hudson will appreciate the bank's check more than Holmes does. Beyond the practical outcomes, the case leaves a deeper mark. Watson, drafting his account for the Strand magazine, reflects on what makes the Red-Headed League so compelling. It's not just the audacity of Clay's plan or the thrill of the vault showdown. It's the way Holmes transforms the absurd into the logical, peeling back layers of deception to reveal a truth most would miss. The case is a study in observation, how a single detail, like a hollow pavement or a nervous assistant, can unravel. A conspiracy for Holmes. It's a reminder of the criminal mind's creativity, a mirror to his own. Clay was a worthy opponent, he admits, a rare compliment. His mistake was underestimating his audience. Watson nods, knowing that Holmes' true genius lies in seeing what others overlook, in finding order in chaos. As the night deepens, Holmes picks up his violin, the mournful strains filling the room. Watson, closing his notebook, feels a pang of gratitude for these moments sitting with a friend whose mind is both a marvel and a mystery. The Red-Headed League is now a closed chapter, but its lessons linger. Trust can be a weakness, deception an art, and truth a prize worth chasing, even when it slips through your fingers. For the audience, it's a call to look closer, to question the obvious, and to savor the thrill of a well-told tale. The professor may still be out there, plotting in the shadows, but for now, Holmes has won, and London sleeps a little safer. This final chapter wraps up our journey, blending reflection with the promise of future adventures. It's a chance to celebrate Holmes' brilliance, Clay's audacity, and the timeless allure of a mystery well solved. What was your favorite moment in this case? And do you think the professor will cross paths with Holmes again? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. If you've enjoyed this dive into Victorian London, give this video a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications for more Sherlock Holmes adventures. Thanks for joining us on Sherlock Holmes and the Mystery of the Red-Headed League. Until the next mystery, keep your eyes sharp and your mind sharper.